Hey everybody, welcome to Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by his websites, Mediumacting.com and Anabolicdoc.com, both of which you can get this book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal, also available on Amazon.com. How are you today, Doctor?
Excellent, Ron. Excellent. Thank you so much. How are you, Ron?
I'm doing great. I'm about to head off to Toronto Pro Super Show.
Wow.
They're so polite and nice up there, these Canadians. I love them.
Canadians are good guys.
They
Yep.
really are.
Up north in Ontario, I got guys, tons of guys in Ontario.
Yeah.
And even over, what's it called? The Saskatchewan, I think. I have guys up over Washington State, mainly Ontario. I got a few guys up around the Toronto. Well, that's Toronto is the Ontario, yeah. So to the right is Quebec. And I've had there's tons of juiced up French Canadian guys.
Well, all the great Canadian bodybuilders come from either Montreal or Toronto, basically.
Wow.
So somebody from Vancouver is going to get real mad that I said that, but oh, sorry guys.
Wow. Yeah.
Today we have to talk about insulin. You did a great video on your channel, Anabolic Doc, about insulin, which is so widely used in bodybuilding, so widely used. And I've even known guys who call themselves natural bodybuilders, and they use insulin because, well, they say, well, that's natural. Well, test is too, technically. But
yeah.
It's been in bodybuilding for a while. We'll get into how it came into bodybuilding eventually. But as usual, I want to recap your very well-researched video, which I suggest everyone go to his channel, Anabolic Doc. That's the one where he's got the notes, and it's very scientific. Mine are never quite that way. So scientists recognized, or medical profession realized, as far back as the 1920s, that diabetes was a condition. I don't know, how long offhand do you know, did they recognize diabetes for many years before that?
My Lord, for centuries.
But they they had no clue what to do about it.
Well, over the course of, in the 17th and 18th century, they were understanding that there was something, going on in the internal organs and the pancreas, and that's in the 1800s, in the 1850s and 1880s. And then, that's why they came up with understanding that they were getting the pancreatic digestive enzymes, and insulin was in there, and they realized they had to break it apart from dogs and pigs and animals first. We couldn't get it out of cadavers, and I couldn't kill live people for it. So, kind of some crazy stories on that in the past, like, the cadaver human growth hormone versus taking it out of, and that's the history, and they cured it. And it was a Nobel Prize, and it was 1920s. A lot of politics, because I want to be careful for who actually, when you look at Wikipedia, like, you'll see the different, references, and there's a lot of arguments. And of course, there's big names involved, and then there's always some poor sucker that's not in there that was really doing the work and maybe really discovered it or had some advancement where he was able to really get it out of the animal, or so, and that poor guy's quiet.
So prior to their getting insulin out of the pancreases of dogs and cats and pigs and cows or whatever, did people with type 1 diabetes just die very young?
Yeah, they. And one of the guys on my comments asked a great question. How do they treat diabetes? Now, this is diabetes type 1, everyone. Right. This is not type 2 diabetes. We didn't have as much of that back then as we do now, because we didn't have the obesity. People lived shorter lives because of infectious disease. And that's a public health issue. So heart disease wasn't as big as it is today. And that's changed over the course of into our last century and into the 1920s and 50s and 70s. But the way we treated type 1 diabetes before juvenile diabetes, type 1 diabetes, is caloric restriction.
Wow. So it wasn't until 1978 that they had synthetic insulin available? Is that right?
Correct. So that's right. I'm trying to remember my research there. So, and that's when we came up with that recombinant technology, where some genius at Berkeley literally was on LSD. I know you love this.
Timothy Leary, yeah.
It was definitely an offshoot of Leary, and he was at Berkeley, the West Coast Harvard, and he was literally supposedly tricking me. He was a PhD scientist, molecular biology guy, young guy. He was driving literally on Route 1 with some open car, and he was tripping on acid, and he was thinking about how they were trying to attach the genetic mechanism of common bacteria to integrate a gene, an enzyme gene or a human enzyme, something simple peptide, into the mechanism of this bacteria, where they're just going to crank it out in the vats. And it's called recombinant, where they tear it down, they break it down, they reattach, and they add these vectors in. It's actually pretty simple technology, but this guy saw it either in a dream or on a drug trip, went back to his lab, and that's how we produce insulin and human growth hormone.
Wow.
So it's called recombinant DNA technology, and it was, 1970s, 80s. This was state of the art, Ron.
Yeah. So, you before getting into the risks, which are significant and lengthy, why do bodybuilders use insulin? As you pointed out, there are growth mechanisms activated in the skeletal muscle. Insulin is anabolic. It increases glucose and amino acid uptake. So it has a totally different mechanism than steroids, which is why it's used synergistically along with steroids.
That's it.
In the fat tissue, it increases fatty acid uptake. It's not a good thing.
That's the problem, right? Yeah.
Both visceral. That's why I got this big gut. And we'll get into that later. And peripheral fat. But why it became... Milo Sarshev, who's a pro bodybuilder, he was one of the best pro bodybuilders of the 90s. He went on to become a guru. He's a training expert, nutrition expert. He was the first one back when he was a youngster. Still, I believe he wasn't even a pro yet. His parents were both physicians, and they would, he was very much. His sister's a doctor as well, so he's like the black sheep of the family who didn't become a doctor. But he was always talking to them and always looking at the textbooks and journals. And at some point, he made a connection between insulin being something that could help him absorb or uptake more nutrients while he trained. Oh. And he experimented on himself over a period of months until he figured out the right way to do it. And he credits it with putting on so much muscle during his career. Because he started out, when I first started buying the magazines, he was not very impressive. He had great shape and structure, pretty physique, but not a big dude. But over the next few years, he put on probably a good 30, 40 pounds of mass.
Wow.
And he takes full credit, and I don't really hear anyone to dispute him, saying that they had this idea first. He's the one that introduced insulin use to bodybuilding. He had a gym for a time out in Southern California called the Coliseum Gym in Placentia or Fullerton, California. And he would bring in bodybuilders from all over the world would come to train with him. And he had them drink these shakes while they trained with amino acids and glucose and creatine, and they were using insulin pre and post workout.
God.
And it was like a big secret club. It was almost all guys from Europe and Middle East were coming out there, and they were all getting huge. So Milos is the one to credit or to blame, however you want to look at it.
That's incredible. What year was this approximately?
I want to say this is like mid-90s, late 90s. So probably, I remember guys going out there from around 98 to 2003 or 4. That's around the time he had that gym. But that's when insulin use really got going.
So in the 90s, in the early 90s?
I don't think anyone was using it other than him. Mid-90s, people started asking him, like close friends like Nasser, other top pros, and he wasn't keeping secrets from anybody. So it started making its way through the pro ranks mid-90s. And by 2000, it was everywhere. 2000, it was amateurs, pros, guys at your local city championships using it.
Now, look at it now. The average kid, a lot of kids in the gym, they come to me on insulin.
Let me ask you this, Doc. You know the answer to this. Is it true? I've heard this. No pharmacy can deny you insulin if you go in there and say you need it?
Here's the deal. I had talked to an endocrinologist about this. In Walmart, the Walmart pharmacy has to and will prescribe regular insulin, not Lantus, Lispro, not Humulin, not the long-acting or the short-acting, the very, very short, though just regular old standard insulin, which is a big difference, right, if you understand that. The goddamn how the stuff affects, you're going to die if you don't understand the onset and how long it's going to work and peak. So, and and I agree with that law, because if you're a type 1 diabetic, and a lot of these people are not, it's very difficult. What a tough disease. they've been type 1 diabetic requiring insulin since sometimes the age of 7. So these people have a very hard, that's a very difficult life to live. They have, albatross. I was trying to think albatross. It's an albatross. They never can get rid of it, and it's very difficult. So if they're traveling somewhere or and they can't get a doctor to refill, they're going to die. Or get hurt and end up in the ER from hyperosmolar state and hyper glycemia. And I've seen it, I don't know, thousands of times when I worked in the emergency rooms in New York City and Hartford Hospital, Hartford, Connecticut. So it's like, so they have to. But now the pharmacist, here's the bottom line, can deny people.
Oh wow!
So you don't need a script. It is true legally, you do not need a script, but the pharmacist can deny you. So I talked to an endocrinologist, so that makes sense to me. If some big juice guy comes, I just gotta have fun with it. If a guy comes in like, hey, I need, he's got his traps are up to here, and he goes, I need some insulin. If the pharmacist has any clue whatsoever, he's probably not gonna. Who's your doctor? Let me call your doctor and let's just see if we can give this to you right. Who's your doctor? Yeah. Because we'll give it to you right now, sir, but I just want to verify from your doctor. We don't need to have a script, written or anything. So I don't know if these guys are getting stuff from Walmart. I think some are. So
I've heard different versions of it but I don't know anybody that seems to have a hard. I know a lot of bodybuilders using it. I've never heard anybody complain that it's hard to get. So.
They buy it. So Ron, everything comes again. I don't know. I've never tried to order any of this stuff online because I just obviously haven't. But it seems like because of our online system in our world, you can get anything online. I mean, can you get heroin online? I don't even.
There's something called the dark web I've never seen, but.
Dilaudid? Can you get Dilaudid and Percocets and all that? I mean, those are controlled drugs. I mean, I have no idea. Is it going to be mailed through FedEx right to your door like steroids?
I think that was a problem with Craigslist for a while, was people were selling narcotics and stuff on Craigslist.
So insulin is guys have come in. And it's so interesting, because this is my 10th year of going into doing this as the anabolic doc. Guys come in, they always come in. Guys, keep coming in. Don't ever stop. Do the consults. I'm never going to stop. They come in guys feel obligated to come in with a whole bag and sometimes gym bags full of their drugs. And they just wanted me to check it. Doc, I just want you to see it. I want you to know it. I want you to see. I mean, okay, but please.
Is this real, Doc? I need to know.
They do, Doc. Have you seen this, Doc? And I'm so nice. I'm okay. Let me look at that. I'm like, can you just tell me what's in the bag and I'll just write it down. Yeah. And when you're done, you could take the bag with you. I don't need this, But I've seen once, I've seen 1,000 times. Doc, look at the insulin. Look at the insulin. I got insulin.
Right.
And I'm like, this is 10 years ago. I was like, oh my God, you're using insulin. Wow, really? Oh man, Doc, unbelievable.
Well, before we get into all the risks, I think you better explain that the differences between short acting, medium acting, and the long acting, because there are a lot of knuckleheads out there who will just say, well, insulin's insulin, boop.
It's so in my video, which thank you so much, Ron. I mean, it's the videos are just exploding on YouTube, and it's there's most of the concentration of insulin comes, and I didn't even know this because I prescribe insulin to diabetic patients, but I'm not an endocrinologist. I don't see it like those guys do. The concentration is usually 100 units per milliliter, right? Yeah. So when you look at the insulin syringe, it's 1 mil. It's very long and thin. It's 1 milliliter. It's broken down into 0 to 100. Yeah, or other ones are broken, correct. Or other ones are broken down into 0 to 10, 20, 30, 40. And you could imagine in between the 10, 20, 30, there's going to be 10 marks. Okay. But insulin syringes at 1 to 100. Ron, there's a constant, this is what I did my research for this. I said, I got to tell people this. There is concentrations of 200 and even 500 units per mil. If you don't read, if you don't know that. Now, if you get testosterone cypionate and it's either 200 milligrams per mil or 300 or who knows, test 400. I don't think you can concentrate 400. I still want to hear from a scientist how much testosterone can you pack in per milliliter with grapeseed oil or cottonseed oil. Yeah. I want to hear that one day. But with insulin, they can pack in from 100 to 500 if you miscalculate.
So if you think you're doing 20 units of insulin post-workout, you're actually doing what would be 100 units.
100. You're going to drop, and you're going to be sick as stink and pass out. And again, people mostly live through this, but I've had so many experiences. How about hundreds, if not 4,000? I think I have my N equals. I've seen over 4,000 patients now. We have this data bank, and I look at my numbers over the years, and I've had so many guys tell me crashing the car, falling in the waiting room, falling in the gym, outside. I mean, getting squirrely and getting like 911 coming. Most guys they're able to get outside the gym into their car, and they just freaking pass out and they sit out there until it wears off. Yeah. Ron, that's true though.
Well, there have been several car crashes of bodybuilders driving home from gyms.
I'm telling you.
That have been, and at least one that I know of, and I'm not going to say the name because the poor guy, rest in peace, but fatal. He died. It's not that uncommon. There's a
big power lifter, no names mentioned, a couple of years ago, 2013. You could research it. He went to sleep. Bye. Wow. And the story was, I know the people that know him. I know I'm in the clique just like you guys are in the power in the strongman clique and the power lifters, and he is a big dude. He's on a lot of drugs, and he was young, probably didn't have heart disease. He injected some regular insulin, as he normally does or did something. Doesn't like to do it before training because powerlifters they have to hold on to stuff. Yeah. So when you take insulin before you train, you get such a pump you can't hold on it. Like Anavard pumps you up too much. Yeah. So it's like this is powerlifting world. So these guys do insulin after they train exclusively. And that's the true world in powerlifting and strongman if they do it at all, because some don't do it. Yeah. And this guy took a nice bolus and he went to bed. Never will. And I know people. I know his best friends. And they said he took too much insulin and didn't wake up.
So let's get into these are all the risks of insulin, and the number one we're just talking about now is hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar, because the insulin shuttles the sugar out of your blood.
Correct.
And if you didn't want to discuss the ratio, but the ratio that guys try to stick to is 10 grams of carbohydrates per unit of insulin.
Yeah.
So it depends. I know a lot of guys who will do as much as 20 units pre-workout, 20 units post-workout. So that would necessitate 200 grams of carbs with that before, and another
200. I don't even take that. I don't take that in a day. I try to be ketogenic. Yeah. I'm trying to live on 75 to 50. That's 200 just to cover your insulin. Just to cover the insulin. Come on, Ron.
And not to name names because I don't want to. I'm like that. I don't like guys getting mad at me. But there's a very well-known coach whose clients were infamous for eating muffins before they trained. And the muffins were, to anybody in the know, that's so you can get a mega load of carbs. It's in a very easy to eat form quickly before you do your workout. I've seen it in person. I tried insulin over one winter, and that was 3 or 4 winters ago. I can't remember. I did get up to almost 250 pounds, an all-time high, because I'd never been able to break 240, 242 before. But I did it wrong. Milos told me later, because I got so fat. The muscles got bigger and fuller, but boy, my face looked like a pumpkin. My gut was just really blowing out like crazy. I couldn't suck it in. I was like, it wouldn't even move when I sucked it in. It was getting so big. Because me and my friend, there was 2 of us. We were every workout we would do. I was doing it pre and post. So I don't know if he was just doing it post, but we were doing cookies after. Like chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal raisin cookies, which, you're not supposed to have fat. It's just supposed to be as much carbohydrate to meet that requirement, but you're not supposed to mix fat in it because that slows the uptake, and it's also going to it contributes more to the fat gain, apparently. So I had a bad experience with it. I got a huge gut. Well, not that my gut's that small to start with, but
Did you get strong? Did you get big and strong? Did it?
I'm so banged up. I mean, I don't focus on strength, so maybe I did.
But you got really quality muscle out of that. You really got.
I don't think it was anything permanent. I don't think I kept any of that muscle that I built during that time.
Oh
It was
wow.
more of like a fullness, a little bit of a rounder, fuller look to everything for sure. Because like I remember, I have pictures of that era, and the arms, the shoulders, the chest, everything was really blown up. But boy, my face was just kind of round and.
Was it like? But so did you feel? Did you feel squirrely? What'd you take? 10, 20 units before working
I
out?
was
10.
doing 20 before and 20 after, which is significant.
Did you have problems with holding on to the pump too much?
I didn't. But I will say that there were definitely times when I didn't have enough carbs in me beforehand or during, and I started getting that crash during the workout.
Oh my God.
I had a drink. I had carb drinks with me, and I had more things like fruit roll-ups, and I'd constantly be going back to my gym bag or my cooler to grab things to eat because I started crashing. So it was a pain in the ass.
Holy moly.
Even though I was doing it wrong, but I'm sure there's a ton of people just as dumb as I was who do it wrong.
Well, now you can look at McCarver, a poor example, where he's on tons of gear, tons of IGF, insulin, and growth, and just consuming, I don't know, 10, 15, 20,000 calories a day. And he's just
It was a lot.
blasting the drugs nonstop for 18 months because he grew remember, he was small, he wasn't that big, and then he got
I believe he was about 330 pounds at the time he passed.
yeah, he
He was
just an
huge.
absolute monster. And the guys, it's amazing to see. I'm so happy to see it, though. Guys, there's been no catastrophes lately. I mean, again, I know I say it. They come into me, and they're still alive, and they're just, their brains are shut off, and, I do see early heart disease and stuff, but I just wish they wouldn't do all this
Well, we talked
insulin.
about things that could suddenly kill you. And, we talked about DNP a couple months back. 'Cause that's something that if you misdose it, you're going to die. And insulin, definitely the same thing. If you take too much insulin and you don't take in enough carbs with it and you pass out and nobody's there to call 911 for you or
Brain
whatever.
damage. Your brain, and if you live through it, you're an idiot because then you have brain damage.
Yeah, so definitely, it makes steroids look very safe in comparison.
I mean, it's really amazing, isn't it?
So another danger you just mentioned is overdose, unintentional overdose from these highly concentrated
Yeah.
brands of insulin. Visceral fat accumulation, the bubble gut. Oof, that's a rough one. Because I was not using GH. I was on gear, but I wasn't on GH. So it was just gear, insulin, and a lot of food, and my gut grew. It was
So
getting
maybe
disgusting.
it's not GH, it's really the insulin.
GH might also be a contributing factor. If someone's doing all of them, I assume it's even worse. Because, people wouldn't be accusing GH of causing the bubble guts if it didn't play a big role also. But
True.
most people use both of them at the same time. Most of the top people, amateurs and pros, are on steroids, insulin, and GH
Wow.
pretty much all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're keeping up with the Joneses, and the Joneses are on all these drugs, so they better use them too.
Jesus.
Organomegaly, growth of the internal organs, also going to give you a bigger gut. And also you've seen cases of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease from insulin use
Yeah.
or abuse. Electrolyte disturbances. About the potassium. Someone has a question about that on the YouTube. We'll get to that.
That's academic stuff, because we use it in the hospital if you have hyperkalemia. If we're using Caxolate, we have other techniques to do it. But if we have to get you down quick, we give insulin, IV insulin with sugar, dextrose. When I talk to my endocrinologist, thank you so much. He knows who he is. I have an endocrinologist in the background right now somewhere. It's going to come out into the foreground sooner or later.
Oh, I thought you meant like right there behind you.
No. Yeah. So it's a doctor I work with who's a legitimate doctor. He's a real doctor, and he's definitely the up and coming anabolic doc. I could tell you that. We'll see if we can announce him one of these days. We have to be very careful.
Okay.
So this guy is a smart guy. He's a real doctor, and he's involved with it. Younger guy. And I asked him, because he's a real endocrinologist, so he's an expert in diabetes. So I asked him these questions, and he said, Doc, you got to remember, we use this in the hospital for hyperkalemia. I was like, Jesus, that's correct. We do. I did. I used it. I don't work in the ER anymore, but I used to. So see, people don't know that. Now, if you're on insulin, it's going to affect your potassium levels. If you're on drugs and diuretics and you're setting up this storm and you're on these drugs, that's why guys get dizzy and they pass out. And there ain't no guru going to tell you how to fix that up. And Dave Palumbo, please, Dave, please go back to medical school if you want to, sir.
I think he's got 1 year left.
Please go to medical school. We went to the same med school, except I finished and you didn't. And I'm tired of hearing this garbage from these people. And I'm definitely looking to piss people off with that, because you know what? You're not a goddamn doctor. None of you gurus are doctors, and you're killing people across the board. Sorry, Ron.
No, that's okay. So you used insulin in the ER back in when you were a resident or whatever, to lower potassium levels. So that means abusing all this insulin as a bodybuilder would lower your potassium levels.
Absolutely. So but the body is so resilient. Your body, but how many people end up in the ER for palpitations and electrolyte abnormalities, and the doctors have no goddamn idea what's going on, because you're not telling them that you're this perfectly normal guy and you have body dysmorphia or whatever the hell you have.
Yeah, that's what I have.
And me too. And you've gone as far as you inject insulin. And don't hate on those doctors in there. They're so goddamn busy saving everyone's life that they don't have time for this stuff.
Right.
So I'm defending those doctors, and they're like, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, your potassium's low, maybe really low. We don't understand why. So they're going to give you an IV bolus of potassium, and they're going to be like, well, maybe we'll call a nephrologist in, because that's if they're trying to figure out all the cards laying down, and they're like, cardiology. If your potassium is low, that falls under nephrology, because that's your kidney function.
Right.
So it's like if you said, hey, you know what? I was injecting some insulin. They go, oh, okay.
Why didn't you say so?
Why didn't you say so? Don't be a hater. So it's like, and then it's like, you know what? These guys see so much crazy stuff in there. I just don't think they're hating on people. I think they're like, okay, next, let's keep moving. But in the same token, I ask doctors, look, man, it's a big world now. 18 million people on steroids in America? 18 million. So it's like, everyone's on steroids of some kind, or boosters and roosters and ashwagandhas and peptides and SARMs. Thank you. And it's like, so let's not hate. Let's try to let's try to figure it out, folks. Insulin is wrong.
Now, here's a question I have for you. You talk about insulin resistance being a risk. Can a bodybuilder abusing insulin eventually become diabetic?
So I asked, let's back up. If you take testosterone, you're going to blow out your brain, and your brain blows out from your balls, and then you have anabolic steroid-induced hypogonadism. You're never going to come off testosterone. Okay. Yeah. No one's going to argue me. So if you take too much thyroid, does that blow out your connection with your central nervous system, your thyroid? The answer is, apparently, it looks like no, not easily.
Great.
Not easily. Now, again, I know these guys want to hear this. Does it happen when you give exogenous insulin and insulins to your body when you didn't need it? The answer looks like we don't know, but probably not.
Oh, okay, great.
But again, how your gut was big. How's your gut now? Did it retract?
Not all the way. No, not all the way.
So hold on. Your insulin use, and God bless you, Ron. God bless you. The world thanks you. Yeah. Questioning you. Did your insulin use, you said, in a temporal fashion in time, cause to have it enlarged? So it does hypertrophy and hyperplate. The visceral fat. All the douchebags can go into all the. These are idiots who talk about this stuff. It grows mesenchymal fat in the adipose tissue. It grows adjacent adipose tissue, mesenchymal tissue. The gut grows. Everything grows. Shut that up. Okay, so forget about the minutia, guy. This is like it. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah, and I want to state one more time. I was not on GH.
So but
think, insulin's safe and it's GH that gives you the gut. I wasn't on GH and I got a gut, and it never went back down to its original size.
So now, case in point, you're the case study. I don't know. This is why I'm opening up a registry and I'm doing all this stuff. Wait for the announcement, and your gut has grown from it. You said to me that it was after not Anavar and Deca and Decadrobolin and Dianabol and Anadrol and test. It was because of insulin. Okay, so and we would look at that and go, okay, well let's do a study. Okay, well we're doing it. So now your gut is still there, but guys get older and they have the gut. The guts kind of come out. Punch this gut, honey. Come on. But they have this big gut. I mean, I'm just trying to. So does it fully, now the gut can grow, it doesn't go back, or it goes back 50%.
Yeah.
We have to study this, but God knows I don't want to study people on insulin. It's just incredible, but it is what it is. So are you insulin intolerant? You don't have impaired fasting glucose, do you, Ron?
Not that I know of. I mean,
are you diabetic? I don't think you.
No, I would think I would know if I was.
Well, we looked at your lab, so I don't think you.
No, I'm not diabetic. I'm not diabetic.
So you're not. Now, if you do a lot of it though, I have patients that have come to me and they said, Doc, I'm freaking type 2 diabetic now because I did during the 90s so much insulin that I destroyed it. But wait a minute, he's 50 something years old now. I have a guy next to him that he's type 2 diabetic also. Yeah. Because so we don't know, but it's not. I can tell you this. And I'm just trying to tell the truth. I am just like you, Ron, I am out here to tell the truth because I'm an expert in this stuff and I'm going to be very harsh about it. Steroids and the brain shut off very easily. We don't know why. It's got some deep circadian with the brain and it's incredibly sensitive. Guys can do a small amount of steroids and their hypothalamus pituitary gonad axis is wow. Now it takes a lot of time to come back. Sometimes, Doc, I didn't do much. How do I have low T from steroids? I didn't do. He did more than me. Okay, insulin and thyroid preparations. This is also mediating through the anterior pituitary for all the bro science guys. It seems like people are much more resistant, and it doesn't happen. I'm not saying go out and do thyroid preparations like a bunch of anti-aging douchebags who put everyone on thyroid. They're going to end up they're losing their licenses right now because people are popping into AFib. Oh boy. And people are dying and having. It's true. Anti-aging guys are starting to people on thyroid preparations. Ron, there's nothing wrong with their thyroid. That's an idiot to me.
Well, they want to get ripped. So.
I mean, just go ahead and just go for it then, guys. But when I pull people off thyroid preparations, for the most part, 10 years of doing it, right? Maybe 15. Yeah. The thyroid goes back to normal and there's no problem. I don't see an uptick also in men that are using recreational insulin, not that much. Yeah. You know, they're not, I don't see them increased in prediabetes or frank type 2. We're talking type 2 diabetes. It definitely doesn't bring on type 1 diabetes. Type 1 juvenile diabetes, the old-fashioned juvenile, it's type 1. That's a person that has an infection when they're young typically, and their pancreas and their islets of Langerhans cells are eradicated and they don't produce any endogenous insulin whatsoever. That's type 1 insulin. That's type 1 diabetes, type 1 insulin dependent. The type 2 diabetes in our country is because of fat tissue, and the insulin becomes desensitized. If you use insulin early when you don't need it, we're worrying that the guts that's produced could set you up for being a type 2 diabetic. Maybe in the next 5 or 10 years from what you did, you'd be type 2 diabetic.
Damn it.
You didn't do that much.
No, it was about a 3-month period.
It's not going to happen. Okay. It's not going to happen. Highly unlikely. But if you're using insulin for years, I have a couple of guys that they tell me, I did it, I'm a diabetic. I saw endocrinology guys, they told me I'm diabetic because of my insulin use. And then they came to me because they have low T, they have everything now low. Yeah. And I just, there's no data to support it, Ron. I'm done.
Just a couple questions from your YouTube comments. Because like I said, you're in the office all day seeing patients. You don't have time to respond to all these. So this guy says, I'm type 1 diabetic. Do I have any of these quote-unquote advantages from insulin use? Sometimes 7 insulin shots per day, LOL. I don't know why that's funny. Now I understand DM1 is a catabolic disease mainly. What's DM1?
Diabetes type 1.
Oh, diabetes, okay. Now I understand diabetes type 1 is a catabolic disease mainly because of hyperglycemia that can occur often and very easily. But my HbA1c is 6.3%, which is close to normal. So I guess he's just asking, regular type 1 diabetics, do they have any advantages as far as muscle building?
Okay, they
their
do.
Insulin use?
So I have patients that have used, I have many patients that are type 1 diabetics over my almost 20-year career from residency training and med school and the end of med school and residency. And they have used it. Yeah, yes.
Well, you remember Tim Belknap, the pro bodybuilder from?
Yes, I know. I met him.
Yeah, so he was the first I say openly like it's like you're coming out as gay. No, he was the first known top diabetic pro bodybuilder, and he was massive. He was built like a little tank.
True.
And people attributed either correctly or falsely his insulin use for his condition.
So there's other. I'm not going to say names. There's other pro bodybuilders, Ron, that are type 1 diabetic. I'm just not going to say the names. They've come to see me.
Okay.
So, and they may not tell that to people, but they use more insulin. They just cover it with the carbs, steroids, and oh yeah, sure it is. So that guy and his hemoglobin A1C. So he talked about type 1 diabetes. He's a type 1. So as a young man, he unfortunately went into the state where he had his sugars were probably 300 or maybe even higher, and he felt he was sick and nauseous and vomiting, and he was a lot of them present with diabetic ketoacidotic state where they're sick and stomach. People think they have the stomach flu, and the parents, these are usually 7 to 12, and they bring them into the hospital, and we come back and we say, I'm really sorry to tell you, your son or daughter is a juvenile diabetic type 1. And then we start the IV insulin with glucose, and we titrate them, we watch them, and they end up leaving the hospital after being cared for by diabetic nursing, and we give them how to teach to inject insulin, and they go along their way, and they start to learn how their body changes, their guts can grow. I mean, they learn all this, so that's where I think Milos understood that it's anabolic. So type 1, so we measure hemoglobin A1C. He said HbA1c or something. Yeah. So 6.6, I do love the guy. That he knows that's not perfect. That's under 7, so that's a standard of care. But a perfect A1C is less than 5.7. Now he's letting his insulin. He's not perfectly controlled, but for a type 2, an insulin type 2 or type 1 diabetic, keeping under 7 is pretty good. Okay. If you're really, really tight, you're going to keep even normal is under 5.7, but you'll suffer with a lot of lows. And this is true. So when you're a diabetic, either a type 2 insulin dependent or a type 1, and you're trying to keep your sugar and A1C tight, boy, these people, I put it in my video. There's a man that was so tight, he used to use his top of his arms, and they were just riddled. It looked like a rash that was destroyed because he would finger prick and inject. He would check his finger sticks, not here, but up here. Yeah. And he looked like he had leprosy. And his A1C, he would never he would be talking to me without even breaking eye contact and checking his finger, and then he would inject. He would pull his insulin out of an easy wad, like he didn't use pumps. He died. He was one of the oldest type 1 diabetics. He lived to almost 70. It's almost unheard of since the age of 7. And his A1C never went over 6.1. Now, he had so many low episodes, the paramedics in town camped out next to his house.
Huh. Now you say that 70. I mean, what's the typical life expectancy for a type 1 diabetic?
Very good question. Don't quote me on it. Under 70, maybe 60s or 50s maybe. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
No, I mean, I've known plenty of people who talk about their grandparents. They lost their vision. They had to have a foot amputated. My buddy the Goon, his mom just had to have one of her toes amputated. Now they're looking at taking her feet.
But see, Ron, being a doctor, I'm an internal medicine doctor, and diabetes, endocrinology. This is my mainstay. This is my bread and butter. Right? This is my meat and potato. This is my wheelhouse. Diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol. It's just so irritating. It's so obnoxious and it's so annoying. Steroids are steroids. Yeah, they're built for muscle tissue. Yeah. I can get that. Insulin, it's just like you're gonna push for it, man. I'm not saying steroids are better, but Ron, I did my analogy. Steroids actually are for muscle building.
Right.
But insulin's not for muscle. It's for hyperkalemia and diabetes. When you look, remember you see my videos? I give all these real, true uses of steroids. They should, maybe we're going to bring them back.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, DMP was built for explosives. And
But DMP, explosive ammunition. Insulin is for diabetes and in the ER for hyperkalemia. I'm just trying to be, I have to be aggressive on this. Come on, Ron.
Okay, I want to finish with I guess it was more of a comment than a question on your YouTube video. Doc, you said that some of the pros can take 100 IUs of insulin per day. I highly doubt that is an accurate statement. I am type 1 diabetic. My body doesn't produce insulin, so I'm very familiar with different insulins and dosages. I've never been fat nor have metabolic syndrome, and yet still got this disease. Anyways, I eat roughly 250 grams of carbs a day. This will require me to take fast-acting insulin about 0.8 units per 10 grams of carbs. So that would be 20 IU of fast-acting insulin a day. And then long-acting is pretty standard, just 13 IU per day. So I'm taking 33 IUs of insulin each day. I highly doubt any bodybuilder is capable of taking 100 units of insulin each day who also has a working pancreas and no insulin resistance. If I had to inject 100 units of insulin, this would require me to eat close to 1,000 grams of carbs. Otherwise, I would die. The stuff is extremely potent, and the mistake of calculating 1 to 2 units is enough for hypoglycemia.
Wow. Ron, look, when I did my research, I heard that guys, like you can imagine guys, look, Ron, you were taking, this is for the guy.
I was taking 40, but...
Come on. You were taking 40. You're just
Doc, you got to hear it. You got Boston Lloyd, our buddy Boston. I actually like Boston. He's a good kid. He's misguided in many ways, but he posted on Facebook a few months ago whatever the cocktail of drugs he was doing, and he was using 140 units of insulin a day at the time.
I'm telling you the truth. This man, I'm sorry to tell you, sir, but there are guys that have told me that they're using 80 to 100 regularly. Yeah. They're not lying to me. They're covering it with tons of glucose and sugar monomers.
So the disbelief comes from the fact that he can't seem to comprehend somebody eating 1,000 grams of carbs. But, there's these carb drinks, and it can be done. Muffins, you can get your clean carbs with your rice, potatoes, and oats and all that. But then you could drink soda. You can have candy. I mean, I've seen...
God,
there's videos where bodybuilders go shopping, and I'm not going to name names again, but Greg Valentino named names. He said people need to understand, especially the kids out there. This is all because of insulin. Because they show a bodybuilder, he's in a supermarket buying like Pop-Tarts and all this crap food.
It's insulin.
Because of sugary cereals, and it's for insulin use. It's to go along with the insulin use.
Ron, I swear this is so crazy now.
So, yeah. Whew, it's been exhausting, Doc, hasn't it?
Oh, this is an exhausting video, Ron.
I know. Well, because it's such a widespread drug. I know so many guys that use insulin. Wow. I would never use it again, but that's because my gut is just, I can't imagine. If it's any bigger than this, I would just have to wear like a jacket all the time.
Is it all the top pros are using some insulin?
I don't know if I wouldn't say that all. That's a very blanket statement. Let's say most. And maybe they don't all use it every day or at all parts of the year, but most pro bodybuilders use insulin at least part of the training year. I would think more so in the off season when they're trying to gain, when they're trying to build, rather than contest prep when they're trying to preserve the muscle.
There's no slowing this down. There's no slowing this insulin use down, is there?
No, because the only perceived risk is the hypoglycemia, and they figure, well, anyone that gets hypoglycemia was just dumb and they didn't calculate right, they didn't do it right. So the argument is always going to be, if you do it right, you'll be fine.
I hear it. I hear that.
Yeah. So leave me alone, Doc. Stop telling me not to use drugs. They say you're such a downer.
I'm a down guy. I know.
Stop ruining all these careers, Doc.
I'm a career ruiner.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's been, we're starting to get some good questions again on the forum from guys like Swami and Squat Junkie. So next time, let's do a Q&A rather than me stealing all your videos.
I do love it.
But your videos, everybody, he's done an amazing series of I'm going to call them drug profile videos, where each video is about a specific drug. He's done all the popular steroids. Now he's done growth hormone, insulin, DNP.
This week, we're shooting the video, anti-estrogen part 1, clomiphene.
Boy, Clomid. Okay, yeah, I can skip that one. That's fine. So please, guys, if you want all the real scientific annotated information, go to Anabolic Doc on YouTube. Amazing set of videos Dr. Tom is putting out every week. Quality stuff with cliff notes. It's got like a table of contents, everything with the time codes. So
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
This guy, Alex, is doing a bang-up job with these videos for him. So definitely check that out. And for those of you saying, how do I contact the Anabolic Doc? I want a consultation. Website's right there, metabolicdoc.com. There's a contact section on there. So, you know, if you're a man who's used or is using and you want to protect your health and live a long and healthy life as possible while still being jacked, you know, Dr. Thomas O'Connor is one of the only men in America that's going to be there for you. So that's about it. That's about all I got for you today, Doc.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Dr. O'Connor, thank you once again for your time, your expertise, your knowledge. You know, there's only two of you guys I know of in the world right now doing this.
Me and Dr. T.
And one of them's all the way over in Greece. So this one's right here in Connecticut, USA, and Florida, USA, at certain times of the month. And that's it. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you everybody for watching Ask the Anabolic Doc. We will see you next time.